Hello, folks, and welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. For those of you who don't know, I also run the blog, smellslikeinfinitesadness.com, which I know is a mouthful. I cover the best in alternative, goth, metal, punk, and more from the 80s and 90s up to present day. I am a proud Gen Xer who loves waxing poetic in the music of my youth and discussing it, dissecting it, and obsessing over it. And I'm now branching out into the world of podcasting. This actually marks the first episode of the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. Taking me a while to get this started, but better late than never, and I could not have had a better guest to kick things off. And this special guest is none other than Kevin Haskins, the founding member and drummer of Bauhaus, Tones, Undead, and Love and Rockets, three iconic post-punk bands who should be no stranger to any of you who are well-versed in that genre. Haskins is revisiting his Bauhaus roots in his new book called Bauhaus Undead, The Visual History and Legacy of Bauhaus. It's out March 16th via Cleopatra Records. It's a deluxe coffee table book full of personal recollections, band photos, posters, and much more. In our interview, we discussed the new book and his favorite memories of his time in Bauhaus. We also talked about his new project, Poptone, which sees him reuniting with his Bauhaus, Tones, Undead, and Love and Rockets bandmate Daniel Ash, and also features his daughter, Diva Dompe. So sit back and enjoy. Okay, well, I've had a chance to look at the promo materials for your new book, Bauhaus Undead. It looks really great, it looks amazing, and it feels like a true labor of love. And I was curious, when did you first have the idea to do the book, and how long did it take the process to get it all together?
This is quite a long answer. So, a good friend of mine, Matt, who works at Cleopatra, he suggested the idea. And so I've got this big container in my basement, full of all memorabilia and ephemera, and I had no idea to use it in any way. I just collected it, And he suggested I do a coffee table book, and he also offered, like a publishing deal on Cleopatra, and the deal wasn't. It was kind of a standard deal, but I just felt, I'm going to do a lot of work and. There's a lot of value to this, all the stuff I have. So I thought I'm going to self-publish. So I started to kind of look into how to do that. And then at the same time, I kept running into this guy called Jeff Anderson at shows. It was kind of like we were going to the same shows all of a sudden. And it was like fate had put us together, it seemed, And about the third time we met, I asked him what he did, and he said he makes these box sets for like. So I said, that he's done Nine Inch Nails, Sigur Rós, Fleetwood Mac, Pixies, and I said I'd love to see these. So I went around his house, and they're amazing. Like books and box sets, and just very creative, really beautiful, very high class. And I said, I think you should help me with the book. And he said, I'd love to, and he's a very excitable, he's a big character, and he has a lot of energy, good energy. And I just thought, well, this is meant to be. So we kind of went off on this completely artistic road and didn't really think of the business side of things. And we were like, I said, I want this huge book and with a slipcase and really, really high quality, this and that. And we didn't, I wasn't thinking, how much is this going to cost? And so we designed this book. He brought in these great layout artists, Donnie Phillips and Kaylee Carrington. She did all the archiving. I just gave them all my stuff, and they took it up to Colorado and, just did an amazing layout. I gave them some direction. I said I want the book to be sort of kind of more austere, very simple, more like a high art book, not like a rock and roll book with paint splotches. And, I just wanted it to be very refined. Mm-hmm. And that's the only direction they get. And they did a great job there. So we started, then I started to promote it, and I was writing the stories, and it was all coming together. And this was like over like a year and a half. And I started doing online promotion, and that was going really well, like social media. And then it was only like a few weeks before the book, we were going to put it on a pre-sale, like a crowdfunding thing, because I didn't have any money to make the book. So the idea was to, like put it on pre-sale and then get the orders in and get the money to make the book. Then I could go into production with it. And a few weeks before the date we were going to put it on pre-sale, I started thinking the business side and like, Jeff, so how much is the book going to cost to make? And he told me, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. That's insane. It was like really high. And how much is it going to cost to ship? And then we just started looking at all these figures and it was just crazy. And I was like, oh my God, this. So anyway, we put it on sale, and there's also a big problem that morning that Wix's server went down. So I was getting no orders in my store for like 7 hours. And this was like a year and a half of, there's a huge build up to this morning, this day, where I put it on pre-sale, all this work, tons of work and effort had gone into this and nobody could buy it. And I was calling up Wix saying, you don't understand. And I was having a breakdown, like you can't do this to me. And I explained what was going on. And they said, we're really sorry. And I said, well, anyway, they said it would probably be 5 or 6 hours, which it was. So I didn't get very many orders. Like with this type of thing, you have to, in the first 2 or 3 days, that's when you get the orders. And I didn't get enough. So then let's come up with a smaller book. Maybe we can get more orders that way, which we did. And we put that up and we did get some orders. But in the end, I didn't get enough orders to go and get it made. And I had to refund all the money. And it was really, it was kind of devastating, And so then I started to go to publishers. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a North American publisher because when I self-published the book, I learned all about, where our fan base are, the demographic, everything about them, about shipping and about fulfillment. I know everything to do with everything that is to do with book publishing and production now. So I thought, well, at least in North America, if I have to ship the book, it's gonna, and that's our main, 2/3 of our audience, our fans are in North America. So I thought, well, at least they're going to be able to afford to get it shipped if need be. And sorry, the rest of the world. I mean, it's just like shipping costs are what they are. And so, and I have no control over that. So, reached out, got some interest, mainly in the UK. Boutiques, publishers didn't have any distribution. And basically, I came back to square one with nothing. Now, this is like almost 2 years after I started. And I was around my friend Matt's house. And he was saying, oh, look at this book we just put up with Hanoi Rocks, I think it was. And he said, we did a really good deal. And it was a much better deal than he offered me to begin with. And I said, well, can you do the same deal? And he's like, I think we can. And so they did. So I was like, well, I was also handing them a book on a plate that was all ready to go to print. And there was a lot of money went into it and a lot of work. So, I kind of deserved a better deal. But I was so grateful to have a publisher and just to get the book out. So, yeah, we put it on pre-sale in October of last year. And then the street date for it's March the 16th. And then it's going to go to Amazon and book stores all over the world. I told you it was a long answer.
No, I was wondering how long it would take. It's just when I was looking from the press materials, there's a lot of, packed in there. And I was looking through the excerpts. I saw the things like the Peel Sessions recollection and your Coachella memories of that performance. And I imagine those are pretty fresh in your mind, but there's anything when you're going through the research that you had forgotten about over the years that kind of came flooding back to you? Anything that you would use, some recollections that had kind of, faded in time and you're kind of glad to rediscover them when you're doing this process?
Yeah, a lot of the stories. I was kind of scared that I wouldn't be able to recall anything because my memory is really bad, and I didn't keep diaries or anything like that. But there were certain stories that I would always recount if I was in a pub with some friends and like, oh, did I tell you about the time David Bowie lit my cigarette? So I had, these bullet points for most of the stories, but what was amazing or interesting was as I began to write things down, then all the gaps started to get filled in. It was all in there. But I think just when you start the writing process and you have a a goal, I think it helps recall all the bits you need to find, you know.
And I know you were saying how long the process took and the issues with the publishing and all that. Was that the hardest part of making the book? Or what would be the hardest part of making the book? And what was the easiest and most enjoyable part of putting the book together?
I think writing the stories was really enjoyable and interesting for me because I hadn't really, since leaving high school, hadn't written any stories or essays. And I actually read, I was reading Peter Hook's book and then I went and looked at John Lydon's book again. And because I just wanted to get a feel for how they wrote. And I noticed that they kind of wrote with their own voices. Mm-hmm. That, you know, there wasn't any kind of pretense of trying to, you know, look like an accomplished writer. You know, you could hear them. And I thought, okay, that's the way to do this, you know. So that was a good tip and a good lead. And so that was the most enjoyable part, I think. And I think when the whole pre-sale failed, when I knew that it was a failure, you know, that it had failed, that was, I had a mini meltdown. It was, you have to put things in perspective in life, you know. Like, it wasn't the end of the world, but at that moment in time, for me, it was.
And I was wondering, looking at, you know, the information that you put into the press release, was this entirely all your recollections, or did any of the band members contribute anything, or did you get information from fans as far as, you know, some of their fan art, or was this all your own memorabilia? I was kind of curious how you compiled everything.
Okay. As far as the stories go, funnily enough, I've lived in Los Angeles for like 25 years now, and that was one. I needed to fill in some gaps for when we first played in Los Angeles, and so a good friend of mine is Joseph Brooks, who ran a record store on Melrose Avenue called Vinyl Fetish, and I went around. He was the only person I went to interview. And I just went around his house and I said, just remind me, you know, about when we visited. But he also told me stories about when he would go to England to buy records for his store, you know, specifically get on a plane with his partner and they'd go to record stores. And during one of those visits, he went to see Bauhaus, and he told me stories about, we were walking to the show, and he said it was kind of like being in a movie. As we were walking there, like out of kind of side roads would come all these leather-clad, like post-punks and goths with Bauhaus painted on the back of their leather jackets, and in the end, it was just like this army was being formed, you know, leading up to the gig. It was quite remarkable, you know, which I thought that was a really good visual thing. So, and also when we met Iggy Pop, I had a different recollection of how it came together than Daniel. Mm-hmm. So Daniel had a completely different take on it. It was similar in ways, but so I went with Danny's version because he was like, "No, Kevin, you've got it all wrong." Like, I met him first. I thought I saw him first, you know. But that was an amazing experience for all of us, as you can probably imagine, you know. First time in New York. We were just checking into the hotel, and in the bar is Iggy Pop. And this is a really seedy, rundown motel in Manhattan.
Perfect.
You'd flick on the switch in your room, the light switch, and you just suddenly see all these cockroaches.
Oh God!
They just scatter to hide from the light. There was usually like about 10 or 15, and I hate cockroaches. But anyway, that's an interesting story in the book. And as for, so I have to give a name check to Gabor, Vincent Forrest, and Andrew Brooksbank. And they all live in Europe. And they they're all collectors of all the band, like, you know, Bauhaus, Love and Rockets, Tones and Tail. And they, Andrew Brooksbank actually helped Beggar's Banquet with a lot of reissues and with sleeve notes. He actually made a coffee table book himself on Bauhaus, and he made up a chronological detail of events, you know, like when we recorded this song, when it was released, what we had for breakfast on this day, and it was really extremely useful for me. And he's very guarded about it, but he said, I'll share it with you so you can. So that was extremely useful for writing, you know. But they also said, do you need anything? And I said, well, yeah, I'm writing the story about this, but I don't have a flyer or a poster. And they're like, I think I've got it. And, you know, like they'll go up into their attics and they have like so much material. And a lot of stuff you ask yourself, where the hell did they get like a master tape? Like, where the hell did they get that from? You know, like, how did they come across this? One of them has items of Daniel's clothing, a lot of items of his clothing, like really avid collectors and fans, you know. And they were so helpful, as you can imagine, because they've filled in some missing parts that I needed.
And when you're doing the book, did it cause you to kind of re-examine your legacy or give you a different perception of your time in the band, or did it change anything like that at all for you?
Well, I set out, I wanted this to be a celebration of the band. And, you know, sometimes you read books by band members and they, you know, they kind of air dirty laundry. And I didn't want to do that. I just, because, you know, ups and downs. I'm sure every band member will tell you that. But I just wanted to like focus on just like the good times. And there were a lot of good times. I mean, a lot of good times. And we were, you know, we had, in the early days, as soon as we started to get some notoriety, the British press was so against us. And it wasn't just in a mild way. They were like really vicious, and they would write poisonous things about us. They hated us mainly, really, really hated us. So, you know, pretentious Bauhaus copyists, and like this, like our first album just got raked over the coals. It was just like, you know, just pretentious garbage, and like, so that made us pull closer together. And I remember us like we were like a gang, and we're like, and I remember like when we used to play gigs, we were like, we're going to show you, you know. So there was all this like energy, that kind of energy of like, we're going to prove ourselves because we know we're really good, you know. And so I wanted to focus on that rather than, you know, the other side of things where things, you know, at the times weren't so good. And so also you know, there's people think we're really serious, dark, you know, like people, and you know, there's a lot of humor. You know, we're normal people, you know, so, and we would make jokes and make fun of things, and so I wanted to show that side, but it just came out, you know, in the stories, you know, naturally. So, yeah.
And has any of the band members, have they had a chance to look at the book, or have they not seen it yet? I was curious, have they had their reactions to it?
Yeah, I sent each of them a copy, and they gave me really glowing remarks on it. They were really impressed, and thought I did a great job, and wished me luck with it, you know. So it was great.
Well, as a diehard Bauhaus fan, I have to ask, when you were doing this and reconnecting with them, did they give anything is there anything else we could do with this band, or do you feel like that chapter's closed, or do you ever kind of think if we could still do something in the future, or basically the door's open, but there's nothing really been discussed?
Well, I have learned to never say never. So I'm not going to say never. I don't know. Like, you know, Peter and David are going out and doing a few shows. Daniel and I are doing Poptone at the moment, and I don't know if you're aware of that project.
Mm-hmm. I was actually going to ask you about that next. So
okay, so we're really having a lot of fun doing that. So I don't know. Just I think for Daniel and I, it doesn't feel right for now. Maybe in the future, we're not closing the door on it, but I think we just kind of more into what we're doing with Poptone.
And I know you guys did a bunch of dates last year. I was curious, do you have anything planned for 2018? And also, I was curious, are you ever going to try to do any new material? Have you discussed any new material, or is that something that's just not really been mentioned? Or
okay, we have a tour that's just going to be announced. We go out in little short legs, so we keep our sanity. And we're doing a West Coast run in May. And then there's another run being set up for June and July. And we're also looking, we're just kind of seeing where the interest is. And, also looking maybe to go on like a package tour where, you get like, we'd probably be the opening act. And then you get two other bands that, much bigger than us, looking into doing something like that maybe. And as for new material, we have discussed it, and we might, I would really like to do new material. Daniel he's the sort of guy that can only focus on one thing at one time, and he puts everything into it. And he's still into we're going out because we're introducing some new songs as well when we go out again. And there's I've found about 4 or 5 that are really strong that we haven't done. So it's exciting. And I think we just really focused on that. But hopefully, he has said from time to time that I could maybe, do some new stuff. But I think that would be really interesting to do. And so I hope that happens. Yeah.
And what has it been like playing with your daughter in Poptone? I know that was, and I want to get her last name pronounced correct. It's Diva. Is it Dump or Dumpe, or how do I pronounce that?
Dompe.
Dompe. Got it. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So what has it been like playing with her?
Just unbelievably amazing, yeah, I mean, it's hard to put into words, but I really feel she's brought so much to the project as well, in so many ways. So I'm really, glad that she ended up getting the spot, and we all get on really well. Daniel and her had to get to know each other, but they could connect really well on a lot of subjects. And it's just really, I'll be playing and I look over and, well, there's my daughter, and she's nailing it. She's a real great bass player. She's just so solid, and we lock in really well together, I think, so it's very gratifying and marvelous and heartwarming, and it's wonderful. Feel very blessed.
And I'm sure at this point you got through, taking 3 years to make a book, and you haven't even probably even gone on to think about this, but do you think you may want to do another book in the future, maybe about Love and Rockets or Tones on Tail, or even something entirely different? Do you think you may have kind of got a taste for doing this again in the future? Yeah,
I've contemplated that, I think Love and Rockets would be a good book. I really don't have that much material on them, on that band. So I was thinking the only way to do it would be to make it very much like a communal effort, which I think would be really nice anyway. It's just like to get fans involved, to submit stuff, and so I thought actually that'd be really a nice way of going about it anyway. So, but it's a lot of work. So yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to do that. So it's an idea, yeah.
And I know you're gearing up for a book premiere in LA. And I guess I was just curious before we wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to add about the book? You want to tell the fans, or anything else you wanted to mention about it? And also anything else you want to mention about Poptone or any other projects that you have coming up soon?
Well, we're just figuring out the details for the book signing. It's only like 11 days away, I think now. But there's going to be 100 books for sale. I'm only going to sign books, so don't bring anything else along to sign. Also going to do a limited edition shirt for the event, and a poster, and I'll sign the poster. And there's also going to be print photographs that I took and flyers that I made from the book. We're going to frame them and sign them, and they'll be for sale. It's going to be a couple of DJs. Danny Lohner from Nine Inch Nails.
Oh yeah,
Perfect Circle, and a good friend of mine, Casper Von DJ. What else? Yeah, I think. Oh, I'm hoping to raffle an item. I have this. There's the test proof copy of the book, which the printer sent to me. Say, hey, look at this. Do all the colors? Is the definition? Does it look fine to you? Good to you? And can we go ahead and start printing? And it's not bound, so it's a pile of paper, and then a mock-up cover, and it's unique. There's only one in existence, and I'm interested in, I became a vegan 5 years ago, and I'm interested in animal welfare. And so this was all very last minute, so I should have organized this a few weeks ago, but I only had the idea. So I'd like to raffle that, maybe online and at the signing, for charity. So I'm talking to a certain organization in LA, and I just want to, I haven't got their blessings yet, so I don't want to give their name. But anyway, so I'm trying to get that together as well. And I think that for a collector, that would be a really prized item because it's unique. There's only one of those. And what else? We talked about Poptone. Oh, we have an LP coming out. We did a session for a radio show called Part-Time Punks in LA on KXLU. And it's a great show, and it's run by this guy, Michael Stark. And we did a session, and it was very much like a Pitch on Peel session.
Okay.
And we just went in and we just banged out the songs. And we got 13 down in like 3 hours. And then we spent a lot more time mixing them at another studio. And so that's going to be released on Cleopatra, and we're hoping to get the vinyl in May in time for the tour. And so that's exciting. That's going to come out. I think that's it.
All right. Well, I wish you best of luck with the book. It looks really great. I definitely want to get my own copy of it for sure. I was looking at the material Shauna sent, like, oh my God, this looks really awesome. So very, very cool.
Thank you.
So best of luck to that, and hope to see you on the road with Poptone. And thanks very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate your interest.
A very, very big thank you to Kevin Haskins for taking the time out to do this interview. I really appreciate it. Hope you all enjoy listening to it. Next week, we have another exciting interview coming up. I'll be talking to Dean Ween regarding his new solo album, Rock 2, which should be a lot of fun. Can't wait for that. Until then, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Smells Like Sad. You can follow me on Stationhead at SLIS. And be sure to visit my blog, smells-like-infinite-sadness.com. You can find past interviews with David J. and Daniel Ash for those Bauhaus and Lover Rockets fans. So until then, take care and talk to you soon.